afternoon. Thank you for joining us at New Day Fellowship Church, growing church, new vision for a multicultural generation. We thank you for joining us on this evening on May the 8th. I know you could be doing other things, but you stopped just to check us out and see what's going on. And I'm glad you did, because we have the infamous, more exciting Mr. Drayton McLane Jr. here from Temple, Texas, actually from Cameron, but he's here because he wants to come and share about what's going on in his life, not only that, but the accomplishments that he already have succeeded and still doing more. So let me welcome you to Mr. Drayton McLane Jr.
Thank you, Robert. It's an honor to be here. We see each other every week and several different responsibilities you have, and I'm always inspired that when you come by to see us, you have a great attitude. No matter what's going on, it can be raining outside, and you have a good attitude. You lift our spirits, but then I know what you do in your ministry program here, and it affects the lives of hundreds of people, not just that are attending here on Sunday, but people that are able to tune in and see this all over the United States.
Yes, sir. And thank you. Also, say hello to your beautiful wife. I know she may be watching later on. So.
Well, that's Elizabeth. We've been married 53 years, and I'm sophisticated. I'm from Cameron, Texas. Cameron, Texas is a small town about 35 miles east of Temple, and it's about 5,000 in population. And there were 91 in my graduating class, and Elizabeth is from Salado, Texas. Salado is south of Temple and Belton, and is a small community, and there were 31 in her graduating class.
Wow.
So we're both kind of small town people, but we really enjoyed living in Temple, and not just Temple, but Temple, Belton, Salado, Troy, the surrounding areas. And we certainly encourage everybody that's viewing this today to come visit us in Central Texas and come to church here on Sunday, because if you're here at 8:30, you can hear some good preaching, and then you get breakfast.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now, how did you and Miss Elizabeth connect?
Our business, our business, McLane Company, is in the grocery logistics business all over the United States. Was started by my grandfather in Cameron, Texas in 1894.
Wow.
Well, people look at me and they think it was me that started it in 1894. But it was my grandfather, Robert McLane, and then in 1921, when his father got out of college, or when my father got out of college in 1921, that he went to work for his dad, and in 1959, when I got out of college, I went to work for my dad. We were in Cameron, but we needed to build a really, really modern grocery distribution center facility, and we felt it would be better to build it into a larger community like Temple, where we'd get a better variety of workforce to man it, but then also it was on Interstate 35. So in 1966, we moved the business to Temple. I was single. I was 30 years old, loved working in the business, and had not been married. And I met her through a mutual friend. Isn't that a good way to meet somebody
Yes,
that
sir.
you ultimately marry? A mutual friend introduced us, and we dated for several years, and then we married in 1964.
Wow.
74. I was rushing it a little
Okay,
bit.
74. Okay.
1974.
That's awesome. This is your third time coming this direction. You've been throughout the years. Drayton the third been here a
Yes,
couple
he
of
has.
times. Now the question is, we have a lot of conversations, and I recall in the summertime you went to Bentonville, Arkansas, to work for
Walmart.
Yes. And I recall that I think you was telling me that one time you was goofing off, or you didn't do what you needed to do, and this certain gentleman corrected you on that, and you said, "I never forget that man." Of course, we know him as Sam Walton.
Sure, he was the creator of Walmart.
Yes.
And if you want to be inspired that no matter in life you can start anywhere, and Sam Walton didn't build the first Walmart store until 1972, and he owned 7 Ben Franklin stores. You remember Ben Franklin stores?
No, sir.
They were varieties, small variety stores, and he heard that this was in the late 60s, that outside of Detroit, Michigan, Woolworth had built a or Kresge Company had built a discount store, and he went up to visit it, and he saw what they were doing in that discount store, and that was called Kmart. That was the beginning of Kmart. And he came home and told his wife, Alice, we're going to sell these small variety stores, and we're going to build a discount store. And she said, what's a discount store? And he tried to explain it to her. But that's where, and it's encouragement to anybody watching here, that no matter whether it's in your Christian faith or in business or a new relationship, there's always a beginning.
Yes,
and that's
yes.
important.
That's very important. And there's many things, accomplishments that you have already succeeded in, and there's still more to come. And it seems like your hands is almost in everything that prospers. And so, so in essence of that, I know that great things are still coming from you, as we chat probably on a weekly basis. You're still keen, and you got everything still just up and up. And one gentleman told me, the late Reverend Roscoe Harrison.
Wow. Roscoe I met him in Temple when we moved the business, and Roscoe were very, very close friends.
Yes, he told me, he said, Mr. Drayton McLane day on Monday morning starts Sunday at 5 o'clock.
Yes,
he
sir.
said, that's his Monday morning. So he said, if you need to get him before 5 o'clock on Sundays, because other than that, he's already in the Monday morning, ready to go.
Well, that's true. I was raised by parents that went to Sunday school and church every Sunday, and you took your tithe every Sunday when you went to church, and you lived your faith. And then I got in business, and they had trained me, and our faith becomes very important to you. And they had trained me. So when I was on my own in business, I taught young people Sunday school in First Baptist Church in Temple.
Okay.
I taught juniors and seniors in high school. And that was back in the late 60s and 70s. I run into them some time ago, and I still see them as teenagers. Boy, have they changed.
Yes.
When they're 60 and 70 years old now. But I came to Temple, and I worked hard to practice my faith just as our parents. So I think in your Christian faith, you have to live it every day. You have
Yes,
to
sir.
experience, and you have to be around Christians.
Yes, sir.
That's
Yes, sir.
where you make a mistake if you do not go to Christians. You talked about mistakes. I'd like to encourage everybody, you're not getting anywhere in life until you make a mistake.
Mm.
If you're just trying to be on the safe ground all the time, you're not going to do much in life. And so there's nothing wrong than making mistakes. And you should have seen some of my grades in your high school in Cameron sometime. They weren't always the best grades, but you learned.
Yes, sir. Yes,
And you wanted to inspire. So as you're living your life personally or you're in business, make mistakes and you learn from it. That's the only way you learn. Do you ever remember when you were a little boy? Did you ever get a whipping?
A beating.
Okay, well, did you learn a lesson? Or I used to tell executives, you remember when you were about 3 years old and you were in the kitchen with your mother and you put your finger on the stove
Yes, sir.
and it burned it.
Yes, sir.
Did she ever have to tell you that again?
No, sir.
No, sir. You only do it one time in life. And that's how you ought to live your life. When you make a mistake, it's like getting burned when you were 3 years old. You don't do that anymore. So
No,
you
sir.
move on.
Yes, sir. I recall, you brought back some of my memory. When I was little, my mother was cooking. And when she was cooking, some grease popped on her arm. And a bubble came up out of her. And she said, "Oh, Jesus." And I jumped and said, "Well, Jesus, where you at? Jesus, where you at?" I'm looking over, Jesus. And she'd be like, "Oh, he'll get it one of these days." Because I don't want nobody
She
mess with
was
mama.
expressing her feeling.
Yes, yes.
If she were not a good person, she'd have said something else.
Right, right. You brought back, you triggered something in my mind. And I said, man, I didn't know back then, but now I know the difference in it. Now, dealing with your Christian faith, is it practiced just only on sometimes, or is it 24/7?
Every day.
Even at your businesses that you portray in, all that.
We were driving over here today, and just before a red light, somebody cut right in front of us and could have hit us and all that. Some people would blow their horn real hard, or some people would yell at them or scream at them. If you're going to be a Christian, you got to be under control.
Yes, sir.
You can't let the irritations of life affect you. That's why we have many people in trouble. Their emotions are dictating what they're doing rather than their intelligence.
Yes, sir.
And so, as a Christian and living every day, you got to practice it every day.
Yes, sir.
If you read about the life of Jesus, he was practicing every day, and his disciples were. So, you have a little different, but your life should be consistent, your Christian values. In McLane Company, we set goals and values in the company, and you've heard us say this many times, and I learned this from my father, who learned it from his father. The values of McLane Company are honesty, integrity, and high Christian principles, and hold us accountable. We would tell the employees to hold us accountable for that we do the right things in everything we do. We all make mistakes,
yes,
so
sir.
point them out.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That is so awesome. I know that, you was devout to your, Bible says honor thy mother and the father, and you did exactly that. And I remember you said one of the hardest things you had to tell your mother as you was buying the Houston Astros is that they played on Sunday.
Yes, she did. I remember I had my mother, because on Sunday we always went to Sunday school first and then church service at 11, and then we went back to church at night on Sunday in those days. And when I had to buy the Astros, I told my dad that he was up in his 80s then, and I blamed it on Elizabeth, my wife. I said Elizabeth and I were buying the Houston Astros, and he covered his head with his hands and said, "What has gone wrong with you? What are you doing?" Anyway, I finally convinced him that would be a good, but he said, "Have you talked to your mother yet?" And I said, "No." I knew what he was talking about, and that was playing on Sunday.
Yeah.
So I went to see my mother and talked to her in her room, and she said, "Can you just arrange to not ever play a game on Sunday?" And I said, well, Mother, they play about 30 games on Sunday. They play every Sunday. Well, could you just not play on Sunday? I told her that wouldn't be possible. And so can I tell you the rest of the story?
Oh, sir, go for it.
And so she said, we had a pastor, his name was Dr. Ed Stewart. He was pastor of First Baptist Church, and he was our pastor, not her. She lived in Cameron. And she said, "Why don't you go talk to Dr. Stewart about it?" So I went to talk to Dr. Stewart about it, and he said, "How are you going to conduct how you do games and how you behave as a Christian?" And I told him we were going to use Christian principles and integrity and honesty and try to bring out the values, and I would control the players and make sure they were responsible people. And I told Dr. Stewart that, and he said, "Well, let me think about it, and I'll call you back." And he called me back, and he said, "If you will proclaim your belief in the Lord Jesus Christ and do that publicly and hold them for higher moral values, I think that would be a good mission for you." So I was really thrilled that I was going to go see my mother. And I went to see my mother, and her expression dropped, and she said, "You remember, he's retired now. You got a new pastor. Why don't you go talk to him?" So she stayed consistent. But we, for 19 years, that's how we conducted owning the Houston Astros.
That's awesome.
Integrity, honesty, and everything we did. And, we had in Houston, and Astro fans were every faith and no faith. And I told people they didn't have to be Christians. They could use whatever faith they had. But the way Christians live is how we're going to try to run this club.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's awesome. And I recall that you all lost a game one time, and this was like your first initiation of losing. And I think you all was up at one time, but then y'all lost at the ninth inning, and you went to go console the guys at the baseball at the clubhouse.
You got a great memory.
Yes, sir. I have to say.
This was occurring in 1993, and you probably heard me tell that story 10 or 12 years ago. It was my first weekend. We were playing the San Francisco Giants, and we had a two-run lead going into the ninth inning. They scored 3 runs, and so they won the game. In Major League Baseball, there's only 25 players on a team, so it's not a big group of players like in football, and then a few coaches, and they have a special locker room. And And I was just devastated. We lost that game in the ninth inning, and we should have won the game. And I was just devastated. I remember high school football or baseball, when we lost a game, we cried.
Yes, sir.
And I was just emotional. And I went in the clubhouse, and they had jivey, loud music, and they were really relaxing. And Jeff Bagwell, who was one of our better players, he's now in the Hall of Fame, was standing there. I said, "What's going on in here? All this noise, and y'all are in a good mood. We just lost." He said, "I don't know what your problem is," but he said, "We're only going to play 162 of the games this year. And if you get emotional and get down like you're down, that in less than 24 hours, we're going to be playing again. We play every day." And he said, "If you get in a bad mood here, you're going to mess up tomorrow." So he said, once the game's over, forget it. Isn't that in making a mistake in our life? Isn't
Yes,
that what
sir.
it is? Forget
Yes,
it. We carry burdens. And he said, "Can I give you how we deal with this in Major League Baseball?" And I said, "Absolutely." You ready for this?
Yes, sir.
Hope in tomorrow.
Wow.
He said, "Don't hang on to the past." And he said, "You got to, as Christians, isn't that what we want to do?
Yes, sir.
Hope,
Yes, sir.
and then
Yes,
I love
sir.
the other,
Yes,
tomorrow."
sir.
So if you have a mistake or something went bad or your knee hurts, you had surgery on your knee, there's hope in tomorrow.
Hope in tomorrow. That's pretty good. And one of your favorite saying is always, you inspire me when you say this. And I'm like, why do you say stuff like that? But it's for encouragement. And one of your favorite 2 words that says, "Keep charging." And you used to tell me that every time. Keep charging. I'm like,
I've done that. I've been in business 61 years, and I've hopefully done that 61 years. People get a little discouraged.
yes,
You
sir.
know, 2 days ago it rained real hard, and if you had to go outside or you worked outside or whatever, and it was dark, in the middle of the morning, people get a little discouraged. Well, don't let that bother you, because the sun's going to come out somewhere along the way. So you got to keep moving in life, and you can't succeed in life by sitting and feeling sorry for yourself. So no matter where you are and what's happening to you, you got to think about how I'm going to continue to move forward.
Wow.
So we all need encouragement.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Did you play high school athletics?
Yes, sir.
The coach could give you a swift kick too. Sometimes
He did
and that
before.
meant keep charging.
Yes, sir. I didn't make that mistake no more.
You bet.
I
So we all need encouragement,
Yes, sir.
and just think of what's ahead of you, not what's behind you.
So how can you encourage the people that's watching today that has pitfalls and feel like they can't get out of the
We all have that. Every one of us has discouragements of sometimes things just didn't work the way they should have worked, or when it was raining so hard a couple of mornings ago, if you had something you were going to do, you were going to go visit some people and it was outside, it's gone.
Yes, sir.
Don't worry about it. Correct it. And plan ahead, and then how can we overcome that? And learn from those experiences. Can I go back to something sophisticated?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
When you were 3 years old and you touched that hot stove?
Yes, sir.
Hope in tomorrow.
Yes, yes.
So learn from what happens to you, think positive, and one of the reasons I keep charging, we collect in our mind where we've made a mistake. That's what we don't remember the good things we've done. We make where we didn't do well on a test, or a girlfriend left us, or whatever it is that discourages you, and you keep dwelling on it. Forget that. Think about what you're going to do tomorrow. So keep charging.
Yes, sir.
It's all in front of you, not behind you.
Yes, sir. I was at a banquet one time, and you was the guest speaker, and I recall you mentioned some person name. You said that you was in high school, and you asked this one lady, young girl, to go somewhere with you, and she turned you down. I still remember that just as clear. And you said, "I wonder what she's doing now." And then you came over, you kept going on with the message that you were sharing.
Well, can I share? There's 4 parts to that.
Okay. Yes, sir.
And after I graduated from Baylor, I wanted to further my education, and I was in what was then called logistics, and now it's called supply chain management. And the number one program in America or the world was in Michigan State, in East Lansing, Michigan. So I went to Michigan State for a graduate program, and there were 72 in our class. It was a 2-year program, and there were 72 in our class. And end of the second year, it was in the 1st of June, and we were going to graduate. And the dean, I still remember his name was Dr. Kenneth Wilson. It was the clearest talker I've ever thought of. And he called the 72 of us in a room just like this, and he said, in a day or two, you're going to graduate here, and you're going to get a certificate that you've got an MBA from Michigan State. But he said, I'm not really sure in 2 years we've taught you a whole lot you're going to remember the rest of your life and make a real difference. And he said, can I give you 4 points that can make a difference in life? You ready for them?
Yes, sir.
He said, dare to dream. It's free. And this was in 1959. Computers were just getting going. He said, don't rely on those computers. He said, God has given you the most powerful computer in the world. We don't use them. And he said, dream, think about where you want to be. I had a knee replacement surgery 8 years ago, and it really hurt. But when I'd wake up in the middle of the night, I thought about when I was going to get outside and start playing tennis again. So dare to dream, it's free.
Yes, sir.
You ready for the next one?
Yes, sir.
He said, in everything you do, seek adversity. The lines are shorter. He said, everybody, if something's free or something you don't have to work very hard, everybody lines up for that.
Yes,
he said, don't get in those lines. Find over here where you're going to have to work a whole lot harder, but you were going to learn, and you had something that you couldn't, that would make a big difference. And I thought that was powerful. In everything you do, being a minister, is that the easiest way to make a living?
Oh, no, sir.
No, sir.
No, sir.
And you have to work on Sunday.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And you went into ministry. Why?
Because it was, to be honest with you, it was ordained for me to do that. I didn't know it back then. You know, the Bible says in Jeremiah 29:11, he said, I know the thoughts or the plans that I have for you.
Yeah.
I didn't know what the plans was. I was on the way to destruction. And the Spirit of the Lord wheeled me right on in, and I just gave
But that wasn't an easy thing to
sir.
do.
No,
how old
sir.
were you when you decided to be a minister?
19 years of age.
Okay. And so the second point is everything you do, seek adversity.
Yes, sir.
Do the hard way.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It was, man, you bringing some things way back that
Okay.
I hid.
How about number 3? He said, operate out of your imagination,
Wow.
not your memory. And he said, what's clogged in your mind is the mistakes you have made. So as a comparison of that story, I told that you remembered that when in 1952, I was a sophomore in Yo High School in Cameron, and I asked the prettiest girl in class to go to the movies with me. Guess what she told me? No. That's over 70 years ago. I can remember where the locker where I was standing, but
Wow.
she told me no. I can remember what I had on. And we don't remember the good things.
Yes,
we
sir.
remember the mess. So I can still remember when she told me no. So his third point is operate out of your imagination. Go forward. Rub those negative things out.
Okay.
Ready for number 4?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to give you a test in a minute.
Okay.
Okay,
Dare
number
to
4.
dream now.
Number 4, you're in Africa,
Okay.
and there are 2 really tall peaks. And between these 2 peaks is a swinging cable bridge. You know how cable bridges are?
Yes, sir.
Where they jump up and down. And there was this long cable bridge between these 2 peaks. And a flea and an elephant were going to go across that cable bridge. And as they went across that cable bridge, it bounced up and down violently. When they got to the other side, the flea said to the elephant, we shook things up, didn't we?
That's a good one.
And you know what the Dr. Wilson said? in everything you do in life, find where the elephants are.
Wow. Okay.
You're an elephant.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, if you told your wife she was an elephant, would she say to you?
I probably have a black eye. Or...
You bet. So tell her the story.
Yes, sir.
And that was in 1959. I can still remember those 4 points he talked about.
Wow. And you steal your life about those 4 points plus more.
Well, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Dare to dream.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a sign back there that says "Dare to Dream," so I knew that one off the bat. So that's good.
Great.
And that's what we do. We try to dream, and we don't never look at the negativity that's in our minds because it's going to stay there.
Got to move forward.
Yes, sir.
They're everywhere.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That is so.
You got to move forward in life, and we all can't achieve the same objectives, but we can be around people who can do that.
Mm-hmm. That is so.
Can I give one other that has been a powerful Christian influence on my life?
Please, sir.
When I was growing up, I had two older sisters, and my mother really, until I became in business, my mother was a powerful influence in my life and my sister's life. Anyway, that was before you had big family rooms, and my mother and dad always had rocking chairs in their bedroom. And so that was where the scoldings went and other things went. And my mother said to me, but she said this to my two sisters many times. She must have said this to me 5,000 times. She said, in life, our most important part of life is our Christian faith and our belief in the Lord Jesus Christ. Said that's number one above everything. Said the number two is the love of your family, but not just your brothers and sisters, your combined family, the 75 that are around. So you ought to love them just as much as you do your first cousin.
Yes.
She said, so spend time with your family and show love and help to them. And then she said, the third one that's really going to dictate who you are, and she said, that's who you select to be your friends. And she said, select them wisely, and they will inspire you. Select them badly, and they'll pull you down. Well, as I was growing up as a youngster in Cameron, my mother had spies all over town. And I had spent a lot of time in the chair beside her in her bedroom. And she said, you're making very, very few poor choices. Well, in 1954, when I graduated from Yale High School, I was going to go to Baylor. And I couldn't wait because from Cameron to Waco is about 60 miles. And I was going to be out of all this. And I was at Baylor for about 6 weeks before I went home. And I went home one Saturday. Guess what the first thing she did when I got home? She made me pull up a chair beside me and said, I don't know your friends, but I want you to talk to me about who some of your new friends are. And I'd have to describe them to her. She did that the rest of her life.
Yes, sir.
And I remember she passed away when she was 89, and she was seriously ill in Scott and White, and I would go out and visit. You know what she'd ask me first?
What is that, sir?
Tell me about your new friends.
Wow.
And I was in my 60s.
Wow.
And she'd say, tell me about your new friends. So that's why I like hanging out with you, Robert. You ever see I get up when you come in?
Sir, if you're not writing something, yes, sir. Yes, you do.
So my mother would be very proud of you.
Well, thank you, sir.
She'd give me some stars. She gave me some bad marks, too. But she would like you. You'd have fun with her. She was feisty.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I learned when it was feisty, I just keep my mouth shut. Just, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. That's all you do.
No, you'd have to describe who your friends were to her.
Oh, whew, I had to let a lot of them go. And it was exciting to let them go, because
you bet.
Because we wouldn't go the same route. So
she said, if they're bad, they will ultimately get you in the same situation.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That is so true. I mean, just for you being here, taking out the time to come, to the east side of Temple, and just spend some time,
I thought you were paying me
people.
$5,000 to do this.
That's later on, sir.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
You'll mail it to me.
Checks in the mail. That's all they would
Okay.
say, checks in the mail. So, but it's so awesome that you could come and do and share about your Christian faith. That's the main thing because
Well, that's the
we see
exciting
that,
part of life.
we see that's what got you where you are.
You bet.
And you continue on with that, and I see that the office that you're in, and I see what's all on the wall. And as I walk in, it's a fresh aroma. You know, as you walk in, I don't know if you've y'all been there, but it smells so excellent in there. And you run a tight ship. And the ladies told me the other day, April the 1st, they said our boss told us that we could leave at lunchtime. And I scratched my head. I said, really? I said, man, I'm just looking like, wow. I said, I don't, you know. Then they said, April Fool. I said, that was a good one. I said, wow.
You thought I had been struck by lightning.
Sir, I didn't know what was going on. I thought I had to go in there and pray for you real fast. But I know that, you know, you run a tight ship, and that's awesome.
That's how you succeed in life.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's out of respect, and everybody loves you. You know, it's not like, you know, oh, here comes Mr. McLane. It's like, all right, he's coming. Because you have a lot of, you know, should I say pizzazz? You know, you lighten people up. You know, you're one of the people that when you walk in the room, you lighten it up instead of darken the room.
Well, thank you.
So I really appreciate that. But I know that, you know, you have other things that you have planned for today, but I just want to thank you for coming
this
and
is
hanging
honor.
out.
You've made me feel good.
Oh,
and not only here, but the people all over. Don't we live in a great age?
Excellent,
That
sir.
look at the health care we have.
Yes, sir.
I think about my grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
If they lived out in the country 10 miles, it might have taken them with their horse and buggy a day to get there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And we can do it in 10 to 12 minutes.
Yes, sir.
Look at the health care we have today, extending life, doing things for us. I like to say in modern healthcare, we're putting Humpty Dumpty back together again.
Yes, yes.
You remember Humpty Dumpty
Yes,
fell
sir.
apart when we
Yes,
were real
sir.
small. They put him back together. Healthcare is putting us all back together again. And then the things we can do. I know I talked to you, you travel some. Isn't it marvelous what you see?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It's a beautiful world God's given us.
Yes, it
So
is.
we should enjoy it and experience it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now, I know we're almost about the end of this telecast, but, you know, we always ask people if they have never accepted Christ into their life, are they interested in it? And would you lead them into that if you choose to?
You bet. I made a profession of faith in Cameron in First Baptist Church. I can even remember the pastor. His name was Lester Morris.
Wow.
And he was in Cameron. He was a great pastor, and he went to big churches in Midland and Dallas and was very strong in the faith. But he brought it. But I wanted life everlasting. And I saw how my parents, you know, when you're 7 years old, you can't think things through.
Yes.
But, you know, I thought then the best thing in the world was a Snicker bar. But you learn as you grow the maturity that comes with you. But making a profession of faith, and you can do it at 7 years of age, or you can move it at 97 years of age. And it changes who you are, and it gives you hope everlasting.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So I certainly encouraging everyone is to make a profession of faith. And if you've done that, make a rededication of your life. We can all do better.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Oh, okay. Also, don't forget, let's talk about the July the 11th. July the 11th on a Friday morning, 6:30 in the morning. Mr. Drayton McLane asked me, he said, we need to do a prayer service. And I was like, okay. And then he said, 6:30 in the morning. I said, okay, well, I'm up around that time. And he said, we do it out here in my pavilion. And I'm giving all the free coffee and donuts away to everybody that shows up.
You remember when you were a little boy and your mother said, I want you to do these things?
Yes, sir.
And so there's a reward over here.
Yes, sir.
I told you if you'll get this organized and get people there at 6:30 in the morning, we'd have all the donuts, fresh donuts that they could eat,
yes,
and a warm cup of 2 or 3 cups of coffee.
Yes. So, guys, ladies, you all invited. July the 11th, and it's 6:30 in the morning, okay? And we're going to just pray and seek God's face, and it's going to be at the pavilion, and it's called, what's your pavilion? It's called Lake Point, Center Point?
Yes, that's the development area there. We
Yes,
have
sir.
several office buildings. We've got a big lake in the back there.
Wow.
So they could come and have a prayer service, and they bring the fishing pole, and they can go down there and fish for a while.
So what's inside other than fish? I mean, what type of fish is inside there?
Not sure. I'm not a fisherman, but Randy Bain and a team work on that, and they keep everything going down there so they can go fishing.
Yes,
But
okay.
you and I have to go to work. We can't take the
Yes,
rest of
sir.
the day off.
That's true. That's true. We get up early month. So guys, don't forget, put on your calendar, July 11th, and we're going to do a RSVP, and you'll get the flyer out at a later date, and so we'll give you more information. But be excited what God is doing in your life. Not only that, but come and commune together. The Bible says that it's how good and pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. So this is a unified body that we're doing to get things going on. Not only that, but to better our city, to better our state, and to better the United States and the world at the same time. So it's great to get together. Sometime maybe early for some of you all, but just sacrifice at least one day, because it's for the Lord. It's not for us. It's for the Lord to get more a relationship with God. How's that?
That is great.
All right.
Celebrate together.
Yes. And then after that, you have to go to work because Mr. McLane has to go to work. I have to go to work. So we might have to scoot.
And you can only have 2 donuts.
Sir, I'll get 1 donut. How's that?
Oh, great.
And then when I go to,
you're going to share the other one.
And then I go to the other place. I go get some more donuts. Because I do have to come. But thank you again, Mr. McLane, for coming and hanging out with us this evening. Anything else you want to share with the people that's looking at this present time?
Just shows what you can do in your ministry that you have here. This used to be an important school building. One of my sons went to school here.
Yes, sir.
And I told him about the church, and he wants to come over and see it.
Yes, sir.
And that's the other son, Denton, lives in Birmingham. But it shows what you can do of taking something that was significant in public education and now it's significant in everlasting life.
Yes, sir.
So really encouraging. Thank you for what you do and the wonderful life we all have.
Yes. Let's give a warm welcome to Mr. Drayton McLane Jr., not senior, junior. But thank you all appreciate you watching this afternoon. And just push share, and with anybody else, just do the same thing. Don't forget now, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on other channels as well. I don't forget all the other channels that we're on. But just share with somebody that the infamous Mr. Drayton McLane came this direction just to share wisdom to us today. And the Bible says if you need wisdom, just ask for it. So I asked for wisdom, and Mr. McLane showed up.